The wind was sharp that day, cutting through the thin fabric of the human outpost like a knife. The air on the alien planet had a strange metallic taste, faintly sweet, and the sky was painted with swirling violet clouds that shifted with unnatural patterns. Commander Ryan Hale, a medic trained in both human and extraterrestrial physiology, moved carefully through the rocky terrain, scanning for signs of life. His mission was simple: explore, document, and if possible, make contact. Yet nothing had prepared him for the sight that awaited in the shadow of a collapsed cliff. Beneath the rubble lay the alien woman, her form partially hidden by jagged stones. Her skin shimmered with a pale, iridescent glow, and though it was clear she was injured, she was undeniably beautiful in a way that transcended human standards. The wind whipped her hair, or what resembled hair, fine tendrils that floated like liquid silk around her face, and her limbs were twisted in unnatural angles. Ryan's first thought was purely professional: save her life. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. Her eyes, large and reflective like twin pools of liquid mercury, fixed on him with caution. She made no sound, but the intensity of her gaze conveyed alarm and distrust. Ryan knelt beside her, brushing a piece of debris away from her arm. The alien flinched, a subtle shiver running through her body, and Ryan felt his pulse quicken. "Easy," he said softly, his voice low but steady. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help." It was remarkable how quickly a human could sense fear, even from a species utterly foreign. Ryan's training emphasized patience, but now it felt like a test of intuition more than anything. He began assessing her injuries: deep lacerations along her arm, possibly broken ribs, and a faint, rapid pulse that indicated shock. He reached into his pack and retrieved a portable medical kit, unzipping it with deliberate care. The alien recoiled slightly at the sound, but her eyes followed his movements. Ryan selected a clean bandage, moistened with a nutrient solution designed to aid wound healing across multiple biologies. He hesitated only a moment before gently pressing it to her arm. Her skin was cool to the touch, and it pulsed faintly under his fingers, as if alive with an internal rhythm unlike anything he had ever encountered. "Can you feel this?" he asked quietly. Her eyes widened slightly, not in fear but in curiosity. There was a moment of silence, broken only by the wind and the subtle hum of the planet's distant storms. Ryan worked slowly, wrapping the bandage in careful loops, adjusting his technique to accommodate her physiology. Every movement was deliberate, every touch measured, and gradually the tension in her limbs eased. The alien's breathing shifted, irregular but less panicked. She tilted her head slightly, studying him in a way that suggested comprehension. For the first time, Ryan allowed himself a small sigh of relief. Contact had been made, not with words but through trust and action. "You're safe now," he said. "I won't let anything hurt you further." It was the first time she reacted physically. Her hands twitched, almost imperceptibly, and she shifted closer, pressing her arm against his as if testing the stability of his presence. Ryan froze for a moment, then reminded himself that his role was to save lives, not to speculate about cultural norms. The wounds on her ribs were more serious. He needed to act fast but gently. Carefully, he slid a gloved hand under her torso, supporting her as he examined the injury. She tensed at first, but Ryan's calm voice and deliberate care seemed to pacify her. He applied a quick-drying adhesive and a flexible support brace that would hold the ribs in place. As he worked, he couldn't help but notice the alien's physiology in detail. The way her body seemed to store light in subtle veins beneath the skin, the faint shimmer that flowed like liquid along her limbs, and the delicate structure of her hands, which were almost impossibly dexterous. Humans were strong, adaptable, and inventive, Ryan thought, but witnessing life forms like this reminded him of the infinite variety the universe held. A sudden movement made him flinch. She had reached out, brushing his hand lightly with one of her fingers. The touch was brief, almost a test, but it sent a shock of awareness through him. This was communication, subtle, tactile, and deliberate. You can feel me?" Ryan asked, unsure if the words would even make sense. Her gaze held his, and for a moment the world narrowed to the two of them. Then, almost imperceptibly, her hands moved again, pressing against his more firmly, holding him in place as if to anchor him to her presence. Ryan swallowed hard, unsure what to do. He had encountered fear and hesitation countless times, but never something like this, something that was not aggression, but an urgent need to connect. The wind picked up, swirling dust and fine pebbles around them. Ryan shielded her with his body, instinctively positioning himself between her and the elements. She responded immediately, pressing closer, her movements protective, mirroring his own. It was an unspoken agreement. They would rely on each other. He returned to the medical task, carefully inspecting a small gash on her leg. He cleaned it with the nutrient solution and applied a bandage, noting with relief that her reactions were less violent than before. She seemed to understand that he was helping, though her form of comprehension was alien and subtle, communicated through posture and touch rather than speech. Ryan's mind wandered briefly to the implications of this encounter. Humans had always prided themselves on their empathy, their ability to reach across boundaries and communicate without words. Here, it was proving to be a lifeline, a bridge between species. He realized that in a universe filled with the unknown, the human capacity for compassion could be as powerful as any weapon or technology. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time was hard to measure with the strange cadence of the planet's storms. Ryan finished the final bandage and sat back on his heels, letting out a quiet breath. The alien woman remained close, her hands resting lightly on his, as though ensuring he remained present. "You're safe now," he repeated, almost to reassure himself as much as her. Her eyes softened in a way that almost resembled a human expression of relief. For the first time, she made a sound, an airy, melodic vibration that resonated in the surrounding rocks. It was not speech as humans knew it, but it carried meaning, acknowledgement, gratitude, and perhaps trust. Then, without warning, she grabbed his hands firmly. Not aggressively, but with an intensity that made him catch his breath. Her grip was surprisingly strong, yet careful, like she was conveying a message he could not yet understand. Ryan looked into her eyes, searching for meaning, and found only earnestness and urgency. He realized in that moment that the alien species must value touch and presence in ways humans rarely experienced. Here, in this isolated, storm-lashed landscape, a bond had formed through instinct, empathy, and courage. And in that bond he sensed something profoundly human, something that made him, and perhaps humanity itself, remarkable. "All right," he said softly, gripping her hands in return. "I'm right here. I won't leave you." Her body relaxed slightly against his, a subtle sigh escaping her as the storm outside began to wane. Ryan felt a rush of emotions, relief, awe, and a deep, almost protective determination. He had no idea what dangers awaited them next, but he knew that this fragile trust between human and alien was the first step in something extraordinary. For the first time in his career, he wasn't just a medic or a soldier or an explorer. He was a bridge. A human bridge to something entirely unknown and perhaps entirely incredible. As the violet clouds shifted above, painting the rocky terrain in surreal colors, Ryan allowed himself a small smile. The alien woman's hands were still in his, a tangible connection that defied species, language, and fear. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that this simple act, tending to wounds, showing patience, and offering presence, might be the beginning of a story far larger than either of them could imagine. The storm would pass, the night would settle, and for now they were safe. But even in the quiet that followed, Ryan could feel the electricity of something greater waiting beyond the horizon. He didn't yet know what it was, but for the first time in a long time, he felt fully alive. The alien woman's grip tightened slightly, almost imperceptibly, and Ryan realized that trust was not just given. It was earned, nurtured, and in rare moments like this, transformative. In the vast, indifferent universe, humans had a rare gift, the ability to touch, to heal, and to connect across impossible divides. And as he sat there holding her hands, he understood that gift better than ever before. Somewhere beyond the cliffs, something stirred. Perhaps danger, perhaps opportunity, but it no longer mattered. For in that moment, two beings, alien and human, had found understanding in the simplest yet most profound way imaginable. And that was enough. The night was quiet now, though the air remained tense, charged with an energy Ryan could not place. The storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape both strange and mesmerizing. The rocks glowed faintly under the dim light of two moons, and the winds whispered through jagged cliffs like a distant song. Ryan kept his hands lightly on the alien woman's, mindful of the delicate bond they had formed. She remained still, her breathing slowly evening out, but the intensity in her eyes suggested that the night was far from over. Ryan knew he could not simply rest. His mind raced with questions. Who was she? What species did she belong to? And why had she been alone in a storm that seemed deadly even to humans? Yet as he studied her, he realized that communication, true communication, would be far more complex than speaking words. She did not have a voice like his, and the sounds she had made earlier were melodic, resonant, almost musical, but not a language he could understand. He had to find another way. He adjusted his position, shifting closer to offer support without pressing. "I don't know your name," he said softly, "but you're safe. I'll stay with you." Her hand squeezed his lightly in response, almost imperceptibly, and the glow in her skin pulsed faintly. It was as if she was acknowledging him, sharing a thought without words. Ryan marveled at it. Humans communicated in words, gestures, and expressions, but here was a being using touch and subtle light to convey meaning. And somehow, he could feel a connection forming, fragile but real. The alien shifted slightly, gesturing with her free hand toward a nearby cave partially hidden behind boulders. Ryan followed her gaze, understanding the suggestion. He nodded, taking her movement as a sign that she wanted shelter. Carefully, he helped her to her feet, mindful of her injuries. She leaned on him, not weakly but with a grace that belied her wounds. Together, they moved toward the cave, each step measured and careful. Inside, the cave was cool and dark, though the walls glimmered with natural minerals, casting faint reflections. Ryan set her down gently on a smooth surface, making sure she was comfortable. He surveyed the space quickly, noting that it could provide temporary safety, though it was not fully secure. The alien's eyes roamed the cave, taking in the environment with curiosity, and then returned to him, searching for something he could not yet name. Ryan began to unpack his medical supplies again, this time preparing to tend to her injuries more thoroughly. The rib support brace was holding, but he wanted to stabilize her arm and leg more effectively. She watched his movements, her head tilting slightly, and he sensed her trying to understand his intentions. He spoke softly as he worked, explaining each motion in simple words, though he doubted she fully understood them. Yet the rhythm of his voice, steady and calm, seemed to reassure her. As he applied a flexible bandage to her leg, she reached out and touched his arm lightly. The contact was brief, almost testing, and he felt an odd warmth spread through his chest. It was not fear, nor was it simple gratitude. It was a connection that transcended species, a recognition that they were allies in that moment. Ryan's training had prepared him for emergencies, for trauma, and for alien physiology, but it had not prepared him for the emotional weight of such silent communication. He paused, letting her hands rest in his. Her glow pulsed in time with her breathing, and he realized that this was her way of sharing a sense of calm, or perhaps a request for him to remain present. It was a strange and beautiful language, one built on trust and empathy rather than words. Humans had always relied on senses and emotions to understand one another, but here it was amplified, distilled into a pure form of connection. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed from the cave entrance. Both of them froze, listening. The sound was not wind nor distant thunder. It was deliberate, heavy, and moving. Ryan's heart quickened. He knew instinctively that danger was near. The alien tensed beside him, her hands tightening slightly on his, and he felt her pulse rise. The connection between them was no longer just about comfort, it was about survival. He crouched beside her, lowering his voice. "Stay calm. We need to move deeper into the cave." Her glow shifted rapidly, almost like a flicker of alarm. She leaned toward him, pressing her hands into his as if guiding him. Ryan realized she was not merely seeking protection. She was helping him understand the threat in a way that transcended words. He followed her movements, trusting the subtle cues she gave. They moved cautiously deeper into the cave, the walls narrowing and twisting into natural formations that created small chambers. The alien's hand stayed in his, leading him, guiding his steps. Ryan marveled at the coordination, the silent communication that allowed them to navigate the terrain without a single word spoken. After a short distance, they reached a chamber where the ceiling opened to a faint skylight, allowing moonlight to spill in. Here, Ryan paused, examining her injuries again. He could hear the faint sound of movement outside the cave, something large, intelligent, and predatory. He knew it had been what attacked her before the storm. The same creature that had nearly killed her was still hunting. "We have to be ready," he said softly. "Whatever it is, it's dangerous, but together we can face it." Her hand squeezed his in response, and for the first time, Ryan felt the alien's confidence mingling with his own. It was a recognition, a shared understanding that they were stronger together. He began to prepare improvised defenses using the rocks and mineral formations around them, reinforcing the cave entrance and creating a narrow choke point. Every action was calculated, every movement deliberate. The alien observed, sometimes touching his arm lightly as if offering suggestions, though the meaning was subtle. Ryan noticed that her intelligence was immense, capable of quick analysis and strategy, but expressed in a manner entirely alien. He respected her instincts, incorporating them into his own planning, and the collaboration felt almost natural despite the differences between their species. As he worked, he allowed himself a moment to consider how rare this was, how humans could form connections so quickly, even across unimaginable divides. Compassion, courage, and creativity were qualities that seemed to resonate universally, bridging the gap between species. In a universe where so much was unknown and dangerous, humans had a rare ability to inspire trust and cooperation through empathy alone. The rumbling outside grew louder. Shadows moved in the entrance of the cave, shifting in the moonlight. Ryan glanced at the alien and her glow pulsed rapidly, a warning and an acknowledgement at once. They were ready. Suddenly, the creature emerged into view, a massive, quadrupedal being with armored skin and multiple glowing eyes. It moved with precision, intelligence evident in its stalking behavior. Ryan's pulse raced, but he remained calm, drawing on every training instinct he had. The alien shifted beside him, pressing her hands into his as if lending strength. Together, they were a team. The first attack came swiftly, a swipe that could have ended them both in a single blow. Ryan dodged, using his agility and quick thinking to maneuver the creature into the choke point he had created. The alien mirrored his movements, surprising him with her speed and reflexes despite her injuries. It was a dance of survival, a combination of human strategy and alien instinct. Ryan realized that their bond was more than emotional, it was tactical. Her guidance, subtle and nonverbal, allowed him to anticipate the creature's movements, and his planning complemented her intuition. Together, they managed to outmaneuver the predator, forcing it to retreat temporarily. The tension in the cave eased slightly, though they remained on high alert. He looked at her, feeling the pulse of her hands in his own. They had survived the initial threat, but he knew this was only the beginning. The alien species was clearly intelligent, and she had survived long enough to teach him that humans were capable of far more than brute strength. Strategy, empathy, and courage could overcome even the most dangerous challenges. Hours passed in a tense but silent vigil. Ryan treated her minor scrapes and ensured her bandages remained secure, while she rested, occasionally touching his arm to guide him or communicate something he could not yet interpret. The connection between them deepened, built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared instinct to survive. As dawn approached, the first light revealed the true extent of the alien's injuries. He realized she had been hiding more severe trauma beneath the surface, injuries that would have been fatal without his intervention. Yet she had not shown weakness. She had relied on him, but also contributed in ways he could barely comprehend. It was a partnership, forged in adversity, and it highlighted the human qualities he had always valued: resilience, compassion, and ingenuity. Finally, the alien's glow shifted to a calm, steady rhythm, signaling that she was ready to move. Ryan helped her stand, supporting her carefully as they prepared to leave the cave. Outside, the terrain was quiet, the threat having retreated, but he knew the journey ahead would not be simple. The storm had passed, but survival would require constant vigilance. He looked at her, seeing intelligence, curiosity, and trust reflected in her eyes. "We'll face whatever comes next," he said softly, "together." Her hands gripped his again, and for the first time, Ryan felt a profound sense of connection, not just as a medic saving a life, but as a human reaching across the void to touch something truly alien. The bond was fragile yet unbreakable, a reminder that in the universe, humanity had a unique power, the ability to inspire trust, courage, and hope, even in the most impossible situations. And so they stepped forward into the unknown, side by side, ready to face whatever challenges the planet might bring. In that moment, Ryan understood something fundamental: humans were more than survivors. They were connectors, bridges, and in the vast emptiness of space, that could make all the difference. The alien's hands remained in his, a constant reminder that trust could be more powerful than fear, and empathy more effective than violence. The horizon stretched endlessly before them, and Ryan knew that together, they would discover how far that trust could take them. The horizon was painted in soft violet and pink hues as the twin suns began to rise. Ryan and the alien woman stood on the rocky ledge, looking out over the valley below. The terrain stretched endlessly, dotted with jagged cliffs, bioluminescent plants, and strange rock formations that seemed to pulse with life. The night had passed, but the sense of danger lingered. The predator they had faced was not gone forever. It was intelligent and patient, and Ryan knew that surviving the coming hours would require more than strength. It would require strategy, creativity, and trust. He glanced at the alien woman. She had rested well enough during the night, though her injuries still made her movements cautious. Her glowing skin shimmered faintly in the morning light, and her eyes, large and reflective, were fixed on him. She reached out and pressed her hands into his, a silent communication that spoke volumes. It was not fear, not demand, it was alliance. They were partners now, bound by circumstance and by trust, and the human's instincts told him that this bond was the key to surviving whatever lay ahead. "We need to move," Ryan said softly. "We can't stay exposed here." She tilted her head, understanding perfectly, and guided him toward a narrow passage that led down the side of the cliff. Every step required caution. The rocks were loose, and the slope steep. Ryan supported her when necessary, but she moved with surprising agility, balancing her injuries with grace and precision. He marveled at the combination of strength and fragility, realizing that she was capable of far more than she appeared. Humans had always been adaptable, inventive, and brave, and now those qualities were proving invaluable in navigating this alien landscape. They reached a plateau midway down the cliff, where the vegetation grew thick and strange. The plants glowed faintly, some with long tendrils that swayed as if alive. Ryan paused, scanning for movement. He could sense the predator nearby, its presence subtle but unmistakable. It was not just a physical threat. It was intelligent, calculating, and capable of ambushing them if they were careless. He needed a plan. "Stay close," he whispered. "We'll use the terrain to our advantage." The alien woman pressed her hands into his again, guiding him toward a cluster of dense, thorn-like plants. She gestured with her free hand, and Ryan realized she was suggesting they use the plants as a natural barrier. The thorns were sharp but flexible, capable of slowing a large predator without harming either of them. Together, they wove the branches into a crude but effective barricade. The alien strength, combined with Ryan's ingenuity, created something neither could have accomplished alone. As they worked, Ryan thought about the uniqueness of humans. In countless encounters with alien life forms, he had noticed that humans possessed something remarkable: the ability to adapt, to think creatively under pressure, and to form bonds even in extreme circumstances. Other species relied on instinct or rigid protocols, but humans had flexibility, empathy, and courage. These qualities were now their greatest weapons. The sound came first as a low growl, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. The predator had found them. Ryan tensed, gripping a sturdy branch he had found as a makeshift weapon. The alien woman's hands pressed into his, steadying him, and he realized she was sharing her focus, her awareness through touch. Together, they were aware of the creature's approach in a way that neither could be alone. The predator emerged, massive and terrifying. Its armored skin glinted in the sunlight, and multiple eyes scanned the area with unnerving intelligence. It sniffed the air, growling low as it assessed the humans before it. Ryan's pulse quickened, but he remained calm, drawing on every lesson he had learned as a medic, a soldier, and an explorer. The alien beside him moved with precision, guiding his actions, anticipating the predator's movements. The first strike came quickly. The creature lunged, massive claws aimed at them, but Ryan ducked and rolled, using the thorn barrier to slow its momentum. The alien mirrored his movements, her agility and reflexes a perfect complement to his strategy. He realized that their bond, built on trust, communication, and shared experience, was more powerful than any weapon. They were in perfect sync, anticipating each other's movements without speaking. Ryan grabbed a large rock and hurled it at the creature, aiming for its sensitive eyes. It roared, a deafening sound that echoed across the valley, and stumbled back. The alien woman pressed her hands into his, guiding him toward a narrow passage that would force the predator into a confined space. They worked together, moving quickly and efficiently, using terrain and improvisation to their advantage. As the battle continued, Ryan noticed something remarkable. The alien was not just helping, she was learning from him. Her movements became more strategic, mirroring human tactics in real time. And he, in turn, was learning from her instincts, adapting to the rhythms of a species utterly foreign to him. Together, they formed a new kind of intelligence, a hybrid of human creativity and alien instinct. Finally, with a well-timed maneuver, they managed to drive the predator into a narrow crevice. It struggled, thrashing against the walls, but could not escape. Ryan and the alien stood at a safe distance, watching as the creature gave one final, frustrated roar before retreating. Silence returned, heavy and profound, broken only by their own breathing. Ryan lowered himself to the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. The alien woman pressed her hands into his once more, and he felt the pulse of her gratitude, admiration, and perhaps recognition of human capability. He smiled, realizing that they had survived not through brute force alone, but through trust, ingenuity, and the willingness to connect across unimaginable boundaries. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She inclined her head, her glow steady and warm. It was a gesture of affirmation, and Ryan understood it perfectly. She had survived because of him, yes, but also because of what he represented, the resilience, courage, and ingenuity of humans. As they made their way back towards safer ground, Ryan reflected on the significance of their partnership. Humans were often underestimated by other species, seen as fragile, emotional, or unpredictable. But in moments like this, they were extraordinary. Their ability to empathize, to improvise, and to inspire trust could turn even the deadliest encounters into triumphs. They reached a shallow valley, where water flowed gently between glowing stones. The alien crouched to drink, her hand still lightly resting on his. Ryan knelt beside her, fetching water from a portable container, and she accepted it with a quiet, reverent motion. It was another silent communication, another recognition of the bond they shared. The morning stretched on, and Ryan knew they could not linger. The planet was dangerous, but they were capable. Together, they navigated through the terrain, avoiding natural hazards and observing the alien environment with awe. Ryan marveled at the strange plants, the delicate creatures that flitted among the rocks, and the subtle currents of energy that seemed to hum through the ground. This planet, hostile yet beautiful, was a place that demanded respect, and humans, he realized, could earn that respect through courage and care. Hours passed, and they reached a plateau overlooking a distant settlement of the alien woman's species. Small, dome-like structures dotted the landscape, shimmering faintly under the twin suns. Ryan's heart raced. This was their chance to return her to her people, to complete the journey that had begun with a storm and a desperate act of compassion. The alien woman pressed her hands into his one last time, a gesture of trust and gratitude. Ryan smiled, understanding the unspoken message. Humanity had proven its value, not just through skill or strength, but through empathy, courage, and the willingness to connect. She turned and began moving toward her people, her glow steady and confident, while Ryan followed carefully, ensuring her safety. When they reached the settlement, the alien woman's people emerged to greet her. Their eyes widened as they observed Ryan, and he sensed their curiosity, their wariness, and ultimately their recognition. Here was a human, a being from another world, who had saved one of their own, survived dangers they could not face alone, and demonstrated qualities they had never seen before. The alien woman gestured to him, explaining through touch and light the events of the previous hours. The other aliens listened intently, their expressions shifting from caution to admiration. Ryan realized that humans were extraordinary not because of technology or weaponry alone, but because of the qualities that allowed them to inspire trust, form alliances, and overcome challenges in ways that other species could not. Finally, the alien woman released his hands, a gesture of completion and farewell. Ryan nodded, understanding perfectly. The bond they had formed would not be forgotten, and he knew that humanity's reputation in the galaxy had been quietly enhanced through acts of courage, empathy, and ingenuity. As he prepared to return to his outpost, Ryan looked back at the alien woman and her people. He felt a profound sense of pride and wonder. Humans were capable of incredible things, not just surviving the universe, but shaping it through connection, understanding, and compassion. He realized that the greatest power humans possessed was not physical strength or technology, but the ability to touch lives, bridge gaps, and inspire trust across worlds. The journey back was quiet, but Ryan's mind buzzed with reflection. The alien woman had trusted him, survived with him, and together they had faced danger and triumphed. He understood more than ever that the universe was full of unknowns, and humans were uniquely prepared to meet them, not just with weapons or machines, but with courage, creativity, and empathy. By the time he returned to his outpost, the twin suns were high in the sky, casting a warm, golden light across the landscape. Ryan knew that his life had changed irrevocably. He had faced death, danger, and the unknown, and through simple acts of care, patience, and ingenuity, he had proven that humans were exceptional. The alien woman's image lingered in his mind, her hands pressed into his, her glow a reminder of the power of connection. And in that moment, Ryan Hale understood something fundamental. In a vast, indifferent universe, the human spirit, compassionate, courageous, and creative, was perhaps the most extraordinary force of all. As he settled into his quarters, documenting the encounter for future missions, he smiled. The story of survival, partnership, and trust would live on, not just in reports and records, but in the quiet knowledge that humans were capable of bridging worlds and hearts alike. And somewhere out there, on a distant planet, an alien woman would remember the human who had saved her, and in that memory, humanity's legend quietly grew. Ryan leaned back, exhausted but elated, knowing that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and dangers, but humans, his species, were ready. With empathy, courage, and ingenuity, there was nothing they could not face. And as the suns dipped toward the horizon, he felt the thrill of discovery, the warmth of trust, and the certainty that humans, no matter the odds, would continue to rise and shine across the stars.